Welcome to the Growth Through Adversity podcast, where men are forged, not coddled. Here we dive deep into the path of true transformation in pursuit of physical, mental, spiritual, and temporal growth. We talk training, nutrition, business, mindset, and spirituality. We embrace strength and we loathe ease. We reject weakness in every form and cultivate power, the will to power itself. This is the rebirth of modern man. Raw masculinity, tempered by reason, virtue, and right action, because nothing of value is earned without sacrifice. Let's begin our apotheosis together. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Through Adversity podcast with your host, Ragnar the Warwolf. What is up, everybody? So today we are going to be talking about back pain and specifically methods to improve your back pain and to train through it, right? Because back pain is oftentimes, it's something that's chronic. It's not going to resolve itself overnight. JD, what's up? It's not going to resolve itself overnight. It's something that you have to learn how to just deal with and train through. But you definitely want to do it smart, because if you just push as hard as you can and keep doing the same shit you've always done before, you're just going to hurt it worse, make it worse, possibly turn this into something chronic that does last you for the rest of your life. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen. Bada bing, let me get some of this shit off of my screen. Go ahead and let everybody else in. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. Cool. Participants, that can go away. Actually, let's leave that up in case somebody else shows up. Ha! Get smart. All right. So your back is not broken. And what you got to understand is that back pain is not something that's going to resolve itself fast. It's not going to get fixed overnight. It's something that's going to take time and diligence, and you're going to see very marginal returns on the time that you spend working on improving your back, right? It's not going to be something that it's like, oh, I do PT for 3 months and my back's healed. No, it's going to be something that takes years. And you've really got to try to focus on rebuilding it from the inside out. And we'll get into exactly what that means in a second here. But first, I will tell you my own story with a back injury. So when I was 24, I hurt my back doing jujitsu. It was actually like one time I really hurt it. I felt something pop. I felt something like go in there. And then really what I did wrong was I just kept doing the same shit I was doing. I kept lifting super heavy. I kept squatting heavy. I kept deadlifting heavy. And, I would throw it out. I would throw it out. I kept trying to just like stretch it out and just kind of just ignore it and just push through it. And eventually it got so fucking bad that it was just like sitting hurt, laying hurt. I couldn't sleep at night. I would spend all night tossing and turning. I could never get comfortable. Like sitting was just like this searing pain. Every like 15 minutes, I would have to get up, move around. And I lived like that for probably like 3 to 4 years consistently. And it was really bad for about 6 years. And then towards the kind of the tail end of it, it evolved into like a sciatica thing. Like I would be working out or whatever, and I'd feel a twinge, and then it would be like, it would radiate down my leg all night. So I definitely did something to the disc. I did something to the ligaments and stuff. I never went and got it MRI'd. I didn't want to get back surgery. That's pretty much just a wrap for any type of heavy lifting or heavy training if they fuse your spine together. So for me, it was like, I'd rather just deal with the pain and deal with throwing my back out than spend the rest of my life with it just fused together. And so I started doing a bunch of research. And what I found was that there was a couple of like authorities like Dr. Stuart McGill, and really there was like this cohesive literature and just kind of like body of experience knowledge on how to rehab a back injury for athletes, right? Tony, I knew he was coming. I knew Tony wouldn't miss the party. And how to rehab a back injury from like an athletic standpoint. So I started digging, I started applying some of this, and really I became my own proof of concept. Over the course of, like I said, about 5 years, consistently, 3-4 times a week, I did my PT, I moved every day, I walked 10 to 15,000 steps every day. I did not let it stagnate. Like I really dedicated myself to rehabbing it. And honestly, at this stage of my life, my deadlift record is about 515, and I can do that pain-free. Pluto, enough. I can do that pain-free. So like I said, I became like my own proof of concept, and I figured out a system that works really well. And then we started applying it to our clients, right? So at this stage, We've used this back system on about 300 guys, right? Back pain is something that, literally pretty much all of our clients experience at one time or another. We work with guys in their 40s, 50s, 60s. It's just part of life at that stage. So, a lot of you guys that are on this live have probably been walked through some of this stuff. So it's no surprise. And it works really, really well because it's really simple and fundamental. So there's been 200 guys with really like severe, or 200 guys that were over 50 that had, varying degrees of debilitating injuries. Back pain was very common. And then we had over 100 with like active back pathologies on entry to the program. A couple that jump out are Jamie. He's been with me about 6 months now. We were talking on the phone the other day when he started, he was in so much pain that he literally could not even work out. Like he couldn't go to the gym. He couldn't bench press. He couldn't do shit. He was so fucking tore up. And now it's like, I mean, it's not gone, but it's like he's able to train. He doesn't really feel it. He sleeps better at night. It's a dramatic improvement. Same with Alex, who had the chronic sciatica. He hasn't had sciatica in almost 3 months now, and he used to throw it out at least monthly. It would go out and twinge down his leg. Omar has lost a ton of weight, which has probably helped, but he's doing much better. So the list goes on and on. I've helped a ton of guys with this exact system. Some of them with more severe injuries than the other ones. So the first thing that you've got to get out of your head is that, and this was a mistake that I made when I initially hurt my back too, was that they tell us when we're kids, like when you hurt something, rest, ice, recovery, right? And it's like, the truth is that with a back injury specifically, really with any injury, but depending on its severity, but really with any like minor to moderate injury, the last thing you want to do is completely rest it. But with a back injury specifically, what you do not want to do is ever rest it. The more you rest it, the worse it's going to become. When you're sitting down, there's 5 times as much pressure on the discs as there is when you're standing up. So that in and of itself is going to aggravate the condition and make it much worse. Also, discs have no blood supply. This is something that makes them very slow to heal. Oftentimes, they don't ever fully heal. So they need movement to get nutrients into them. They need movement and they need to steal blood supply from nearing tissue. So those tissues have to get pumped up with blood. And then, the movement can kind of work some things into there. Deconditioning also reduces tissue tolerance. So the less active you are, the less resilient your tissues become. And if you already have scar tissue and you already have damage along your spine, this just means you're going to keep throwing it out over and over again. And those are the guys that you see that's like a chronic thing. It goes from like, I have a back injury to I just have a bad back. And the truth is they really don't have a bad back. They've just given up on making it better, or they don't have the knowledge and the tools to make it better. So they've just accepted that. Now, there are obviously exceptions to this. There are people that have, if there's damage to the mechanical, the bones and things of that nature in the spine, yes, like, there are going to be cases where it's like you do have a back issue and it is something that's going to bother you for the rest of your life. But I still, if you look at an anatomy book, there's so many layers of muscular tissue around the spine that no matter how fucking severe your back injury is, if you really invest in building those up and creating more stability around your spine, that even if you have a broken fucking vertebrae, it's going to take off some of the stress and some of the tension on that specific part of your spine and disperse it where it belongs along muscular structures. And you're going to feel better. You're going to have a better improvement than anything they can do to you surgically. The surgical options for a back injury are pretty much they can zap the nerves, kill the nerves, which doesn't solve the problem. It just makes it to where your brain doesn't recognize the pain anymore. And that to me is like it causes a whole other set of issues. You know what I mean? Now your brain doesn't know that when something's hurting. Pain is a signal. It's your body telling your brain something. So just to kill that signal, I understand like maybe it beats the alternative of living in constant pain. My grandpa had one of those and he was worse after it. So I've seen the cause of, you know what I mean, of affecting the nerves. Or, in serious cases, they can fuse the spine together. What happens then is they take, L3, L4, whatever, and they fuse those together. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 vertebrae. It can be any part, the thoracic, the cervical, the lumbar, and they fuse them together so that there's less movement, there's less shifting, there's less propensity for damage there. But also now the other parts of the spine have to overcompensate, have to move too far. So then you start getting issues in if it was your lumbar, then you start getting issues in your thoracic spine and your cervical and your neck. And it's like it's not a great fix. I mean, there's cases where if they're worried about, you got broken bones and it might sever the spinal cord, then sure, yeah, like just deal with it. But aside from that, like I would avoid spinal surgery at all costs, and I did, even when it was so painful, and I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life in pain like that. So again, avoidance is not recovery, it's decay. I believe that, and it's true with all injuries, but with a spinal injury, it is so, so true. So I've got a five pillar system that I use. So pillar number one, and these are progressive, right? So one pillar leads into the next. Now that doesn't mean that we should ever give up the former pillars, especially if we're dealing with something severe and chronic. So number one is core stiffening. And when I say core stiffening, I am not talking about traditional ab moves. I am not talking about leg lifts, leg throws, sit-ups. That's a lot of the things guys do to build up their core to fix their back. That puts a ton of shear forces on the intervertebral discs. If you already have an injury there, it's only going to aggravate it, make it worse. And more than that, it's cumulative. So it's a ticking time bomb. The more you do that stuff over time, eventually you're going to go out in your front yard and try to pick up a newspaper and your fucking disc's going to explode. So now those moves are perfectly fine. I know social media will attack me for this. Those moves are perfectly fine if you have a healed spinal injury or if you don't have a spinal injury. I'm not saying they're bad for you. Our spine is designed by nature to take a fuckload of abuse. So it can handle a little bit of extra shear forces when it's healthy. When it's not healthy, it's a very different case. So core stiffening is going to be movements that focus on the isometric contraction of the core and also on the entire girdle of the core. So again, core training is generally done as a vanity, right? We want to have cool looking abs. I'm guilty of this as well. I think every guy and a lot of girls feel that way. So a lot of our core training focuses on the rectus abdominis, which is the superficial layer of muscle that shows up as the six pack or the eight pack. And the thing is, that's the most superficial and the least important layer of muscle. It only does one thing. It flexes the trunk, so it pulls your cervical spine closer to your hips, right? So not it does this. It's not a super functional movement. The ones we want to get are the deeper strata of muscles that encompass the entire spine. So the transverse abdominis, the muscles of the lower back, the obliques. These are muscles that have multiple layers that are going to support the spine from four different dimensions. So we got side, we got front, we got back. We want to build all of that girdle up. That's the best thing you can do for longevity, but you have to do it right. Again, there's core moves that you want to use, there's core moves that you don't want to use, and isometric training is very different than like concentric or hypertrophy training. So there is a science to this. There is a proper methodology. Also, isometric training puts the least amount of shear forces on your spine, so it's the easiest place to start. That's going to have the least propensity to make this flare up. Number two is once we get a baseline of core stiffening, right? To where our core can kind of do its job, stiffen the spine. We're feeling a little bit better. You're not going to be anywhere near 100%. What I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to want you to get back into the gym and start working out. Again, tissue resilience is a huge part of this. Being able to load the spine is important. Being able to pick up heavy things is important. Even if you have a back injury, you still have to do these things oftentimes. You still have to work. You still have to move things around your house. You still have to be like a functional human being. So we want to mimic that, replicate that in training, but we want to do it smart. So there's a lot of exercises that I will never program when somebody has a back injury, and there's a lot that I will program. You can generally get away with things that are, and these are general rules, it's not always true. What we want to avoid is heavy shear forces. So, putting unnatural shear forces on the spine, asymmetrical loading, things of that nature. And then also heavy spinal loading. Those are two that are going to aggravate it really aggressively. And then it will also depend on the exact injury, where it's at in the spine, what the symptoms are, will be a lot of times determine the type of exercises I recommend and the type of exercises that I don't recommend, right? So, but you can train through this. There's almost no reality where you can't do a dumbbell bench press. It's minimal involvement of your spine. Like you might flare it up, you might be uncomfortable, but it is not going to do any damage to your spine. You know what I mean? Same with things like body weight squats, body weight lunges. Like generally speaking, these are generally safe movements. Bicep curls, tricep extensions. None of this really involves the spine, although it does to a very small degree. The spine's involved in everything. But once we get past this first stage of core stiffening, we are safe to move on to these exercises, but we want to do it smart. And that goes to pillar number three, listen to feedback. If you're doing an exercise and you feel sharp pain in your back, stop. I made this mistake about probably 4 months ago. It was a warm up Bulgarian split squat loaded on a Smith rack, right? And I went through my warm-up sets, and it was my first working set. And right when I unracked it, it was probably like 225. It was a little heavy. I probably should have walked up a little bit more. And right when I unracked it, I felt like this shearing pain in my lower back, and I was like, "Fuck!" But I did what we always do, and I said, it's probably nothing. I'll just warm up, do my set. I went about halfway through that first rep and it got worse. So then I stopped and then my dumbass did a couple of laps and then I went back and my back hurt really bad. And I was like, it's probably nothing. I'll work through it. Unracked it the second time. It got way worse. So I aggravated it. I made it worse. What would have probably taken a week to heal. And it wasn't really severe. It took a couple weeks to heal. I put the stem on it. I did all of these exercises. I did everything I know to do. And it wasn't a really big deal. And I have really good core and I have a really good capacity and resilience towards injury and loading. My tissues are very resilient. So it wasn't anything severe, but that's what we want to, that's a great example of what we're paying attention to. Sharp pain, we don't want to ignore it. We want to stop, move on to the next exercise. If it still hurts, then just stop the workout. Cardio is usually safe. Cardio is usually a great bet. And then also like another thing that we want to look for. So a little bit of discomfort is fine. A little bit of discomfort. If you're a little sore than normal, it hurts a little more when you go to bed. It's not a big deal. But what we really want to look for is severe pain that lasts long after the workout. So if it's like you're just really uncomfortable, much more so than the workout, then something we did in the workout probably aggravated some of the tissues in there, caused some inflammation. We need to make some adjustments. So we really want to listen to that feedback and be honest with ourselves about it. And then number four, intelligent spinal loading. So again, we have to load the spine. The spine's going to be loaded, but we want to do it smart. So we want to start with movements that, load it in a very anatomically safe position. So the great contrast there would be something like a back squat would be probably the worst way to load a spinal injury. Something like a goblet squat where we can use less weight and hold it right over our center of gravity close to the front of our body is going to be superior every time as we're trying to get in there. So this is how we'll progress the exercises slowly is we'll do the ones that cause the least amount of shear force. The back squat is bending you forward. You're having to fight that. You're hinging at the hips, you're hinging at the knees. There's a lot of shear going on in the spine there. It's a very technical lift. It's very advanced. It takes a lot of skill. If you do one thing wrong, even at a high level, you can hurt yourself. So yeah, we want to do things smart like that, choose good, smart exercise selection when it comes to spinal loading. And we're going to put those last exercises that create the most amount of shear forces and the most amount of spinal loading, especially axial loading. We're going to put those last in the training routine to where you're basically totally totally recovered. Things like deadlift, things like back squat, things like really heavy Bulgarian split squats loaded with a barbell where it's got axial loading, can't move, but there's like twisting forces going on in the spine there. Fine if everything's healthy, horrible if you're having spinal issues. And then last but not least, we're going to build the full structure. So we're going to build up all the skeletal muscles of the trunk, of the arms, of the legs. We're going to build up all the skeletal muscles of the body so that we can take some of the work off the spine. If you have super weak quadriceps and super weak glutes, then when you bend over to pick up something heavy, your spine is working in overduty. If you have really strong quads and you have really strong glutes, and really strong arms and a really strong core, then like your muscles are doing all the work. You can lift more and you can lift more safely. So we want to build up the entire body. This is something that's like heavily missed in weight training is that it's like people are like, it's not functional. It's like, what's not functional about it? What is not functional about a deadlift? Like, sure, maybe like that exact movement in a wrestling match isn't exactly going to happen, but it's hip hinging, it's knee flexing, it's safely lifting, it's bracing the core, protecting the spine, using the core to brace against a heavy load. Like that is the most functional thing that you can do is get strong in movements like that. And then over time, your tissues are going to become more resilient and your muscles are going to be able to do the work instead of your spine, your weak ass, injured, vulnerable spine having to do all the heavy lifting because now your muscles can do it. So that's the 5 pillar system. Like I said, a bunch of you guys have probably had me implement that on you without even knowing it. Anytime you tell me I hurt my back, that's exactly what we do. We add in the stiffening exercises first, and then we slowly, depending on how bad you hurt yourself, taper in the other ones. Also, mobility is important for the spine, but stretching can be the enemy. So a lot of guys think I'm going to stretch the pain away. Trying to stretch your lower back is going to put a lot of extra stress on the tissues around it. What's better is going to be dynamic mobility, things like hip airplanes, leg swings, things of that nature where we're, hip cleaners, where we're focusing on deep squats, where we're just like with no weight, where we're sitting down, just letting our hips open up. So increasing the mobility so our body moves more fluidly is going to be really, really good for helping it, much more so than just like trying to static stretch the pain away. It's not going to work. It's gonna make it worse. Um, so that's it, man. That's all I've got today in my little TED Talk, man. Like I said, if any of you guys have any back pain, don't hesitate to let us know. We have specifically stuff ready and just ready to implement immediately. And it's one of those things, the quicker you can get on it, the quicker that we can start implementing this recovery protocol, the better of a recovery profile you're going to have, and the faster of a recovery profile you're going to have. So that's all I've got. And if you've been struggling with back pain forever, for your whole life, for years, for chronic back pain, a lot of guys have started my program in that exact spot, and 6 months later, it's not gone, but it's better. You know what I mean? So it's not too late. Honestly, there's nothing probably inherently wrong with your spine that it cannot be fixed. You just have to approach it in the right manner. All right, I'm gonna unshare my top secret screen there, and if anybody's got any questions, man, fire away. You can drop them in the chat. You can ask them to me directly here. You can unmute yourself and ask them. Also, doesn't have to be about this. It can literally be about anything. This is just FaceTime with Ragnar. I'm here. I'm here to party.
Hey, what up, dude? It's Tony
What
here.
up? What up, Tony? How we doing, man?
Hey, I'm living the dream, man. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Hey, so like if we're dealing with not just back or whatever we're dealing with, is it good like heat versus cold?
Yeah.
You
So
know, is it
I'm
good like if you're going before you're going to work out, use heat, and then like
yes.
afterwards use cold, like a cold shower? Is that a good thing?
Yeah, so I'm guessing we're talking about your shoulder that's bothering you a little bit, and definitely. So yeah, yeah, believe me, and I've been there
Roger
with the
that.
shoulder too. It's annoying. I did adjust your program for it today too. I personally went in there and tweaked it a little bit, so it should for about
Yeah,
in the next
I
five
appreciate
weeks.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be really focused on just recovering that thing. But yeah, so heat before
right.
what heat does is it increases blood flow. So they say use
Hmm.
ice for maybe the first like 48 hours after you injure something to get the swelling, the inflammation, all of that down. But ultimately, like ice is just kind of like it's just to kind of just, reduce some of the inflammation. It's not really going to help with the healing process. What's going to help with the healing process is getting more blood into there. So heat definitely becomes your friend
Right,
after after like
right,
48 hours. But the hot cold cycle can also be really good because what that does is the heat brings in new blood. And then if you
right,
cycle hot cold in a shower or sauna ice bath, what happens is
right.
the heat brings in new blood. The cold pushes all the blood out, kind of constricts it, pulls it into your organs, and then you go back into the heat, and so you get this constant flow of fresh blood, fresh nutrients into a wounded area. And that can be like a fantastic modality if you have time after a workout or something.
Right.
And then
Awesome.
all
I appreciate you, Coach.
Definitely. And then also warm up. Like when you're injured, take a little bit of extra time with the shoulder circles, the mobility, the little really light, like external rotation. Like take a little bit of extra time with that, an extra 5 minutes doing some dynamic movement. Make sure you get, good synovial fluid going, good blood flow, a little bit of cardio beforehand, and then do some dynamic movements because just getting some blood in there and getting it loosened up, I noticed with my shoulder made a really big difference in how I felt post workout. Well, it was kind of in that phase where it wasn't totally healed, but it was, I could work out with it. The warm up was really a huge key for that.
I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Keep me posted on it.
I'm gonna.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, real quick one. Core bracing on heavy lifts.
Yep.
Is there an improper? When I was at work a couple weeks ago, and I walked in the gym. A couple of the guys were in there, and this guy was talking about core bracing, and I didn't hear the entire conversation. But he goes, "Oh, if you start going super heavy, core bracing against your belt and all this other stuff, there's an improper way and a proper way, and I only caught like part of it before I started, before I put my headphones on and got after it.
Yep.
Um, just I was gonna see if you had any shed a little light on it.
Yeah, so the specific like scientific term, he's not wrong. There definitely is a right way and a wrong way. So the specific scientific term for the type of breathing pattern that we're using is a Valsalva maneuver, which basically means that we're bringing in a ton of air. So core bracing is relatively simple. What you want to do is you want to focus on trying to pull your rib cage down towards your hips. So we're going to keep our spine flat and we're going to pull our rib cage down towards our hips. You will feel your core muscles light up all the way around. And then the second caveat to that is that we want to take in a deep breath and then try to suck that rib cage down towards our hips. So the object, so you don't want to like crunch forward, but it is almost like a little bit of a crunch where we're just kind of like folding our ribs a little bit closer and dramatically bracing all the muscles of the core there. When you take a deep breath and you do it, what it does is it fills up your diaphragm with air. So now you have this huge pocket of air in your chest. And then you brace your core against it. That air is now trapped between your core muscles that are braced, your spine in the back. And then if you can hold that throughout the lift, then that acts as a brace for your spine. Your spine cannot collapse in as efficiently because of the air there. It also
Okay.
increases interabdominal pressure, which gives you gives you more power in a lift. It creates higher interabdominal pressure. It actually cranks your blood pressure way up, just for the seconds you're doing that lift, and it makes you able to generate more force. So the best way to learn how to brace is to just like sit there and just do it you can do it without the breath first, but just like without moving your spine while keeping your spine neutral, but not overarch. That's another mistake people make when they try to squat is they like overarch their spine. Keep it nice and flat and just focus on just like sucking sucking your ribs down towards your hips. It's like a tiny, tiny movement, and then add the breath to that. So then and you'll feel
Okay.
it when you do it right. You'll feel all those core muscles get super, super hard and you'll feel really stable. And then start playing with it on your lifts. And you'll notice like your body will teach you how to do it because you'll notice like on some lifts, it's like, oh, that was way easier. I squatted 240 pounds and it was like, it felt really easy. And then the next time you're like fighting it. And it's because, if you're breathing different and you're not bracing your core, then you're not going to be able to generate as much force. And then the other side of the coin is that on heavy lifts, like we're basically, the way I think about it is like when I'm standing up on a squat, I'm standing in water about to my chest. And so once I brace, I'm going to hold that breath until my head clears that water. So until I'm about three-fourths of the way up from that squat. And then the Valsalva maneuver is we're just like hissing out a little bit of air, like an air compressor decompressing. So we're still holding in that pressure, but we're letting off just enough to where we don't get dizzy and faint.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Uh, Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So this is pretty advanced stuff we're talking about here. This is not like beginner 101 stuff, but you're probably in a good spot to start learning the fundamentals of it because you're getting stronger. And yeah, you're like this is something beginners just it's like focus on breathing in on the way down, breathing out on the way up. That's fine. As you get more advanced and you want to start pushing heavier weights, your buddy's right. You do got to learn to brace. So all the belt does is creates a little more pressure, and then you're kind of bracing against that. It's constricting your core a little bit more. And then that just gives you a little bit of extra support and a little bit of extra bracing. But you're
Okay.
still, if the belt won't do anything if you don't know how to brace with it.
Right.
Yeah, so learning how to use your core as a belt first is the most important thing, and then a belt is like just kind of takes it to the next level as you get better.
Yeah. So like the point of using a belt when we were younger was so you didn't push your guts through your abdominal, and so
Yep,
it prevents injury. So
yep,
that's why we were using them. We probably weren't bracing right back then either, but
yeah,
you know, now
yep.
that Father Time's kicked me in the nuts, it's time to start doing it right.
Do it right. Yep, definitely. Because the belt is not needed if you're bracing with your core. Same idea. Like your core is going to be there and it's going to hold all that. You're not gonna hernia if you're bracing properly. Like you're holding everything in, everything's tight. The guts are pushing up against the abdominal wall that's like a fucking rock there. It's
Okay.
also one of the best ways to build up your core. So it's like there's no more functional way to build up your core than bracing on a heavy squat or deadlift or bench press, even anything really. You'll learn to do it on I couldn't do a lift without bracing now. And also, so the bracing is kind of instinctual. Like if you pick something up heavy at work and you squat down, your instinct is to like take a breath and to kind of brace. So your body knows how to do it subconsciously. You just have to teach it how to do it consciously and get better at it, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep, yep. Yeah. So our bodies are smart. Like our bodies don't want us to hurt ourselves. They're smart. They know how to do this stuff naturally. We're just like kind of leveling it up, taking it to the next level and making it a conscious process rather than like a kind of half-assed unconscious process because we want to lift a bunch of shit that our body wasn't really designed to lift.
Hell yeah, thank you.
Yeah, keep me updated on how it's going, man. It's just something you'll get it. Just start working on it and you'll get better and better at it with time.
Yeah, I don't think tomorrow's a rest day, and then I think Friday is trap bar. And I was, you know,
That's a great place to work on it.
hit 305 last week, so this week I was gonna, see how I was gonna do. So because
Go
there
from
was
there.
this crazy ass little video with a bald headed man that picked up 500, so kind of a big goal to shoot for.
Yeah, there you go, man. Hey, I think I was more happy when I first got 315 on the deadlift than I was when I got 500. It was like that was the first real fucking road mark where I really felt like I was like doing something. When I years ago when I crossed that 315 and I put the third wheel on for the deadlift, I thought I still think that was cooler than when I hit 500 because after that it's like okay, you're strong. Anybody who can lift 300 pounds off the fucking ground, in my opinion, is strong as a fucking horse. So from there, it's just like, it's just margins of magnitudes of order, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah, though. But
Yep.
still, like, I did do 500, but that was like back in high school.
Yep.
And, also when I first got in the military, yeah, but I was also 20 something years old.
20 something
So
years old. And it was probably just brute strength and not technique. So that's the other,
brute force and
yeah,
ignorance at its
trying
finest.
to force through 500 versus like smoothly and lifting 500 without really I mean, there's always a fear of injury. It's anytime you do anything, you could get hurt, but it's very small when you have good mechanics and you do it right and you listen to your body. But when you're young and you're just like, you can get away with that shit when you're young. You can't get away with it at 40 though. Yeah.
No, not anymore.
Nope. Awesome, dude. Of
I appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
course, anytime, man. Jimmy, did you have a question or were you just sitting there? I saw you on mute. Okay, cool. All right.
Hey
All
man, I'm
right.
sorry. I'm sorry again,
No,
man.
you're
No, that
good.
he mentioned the trap machine. So the trap bar.
Yep.
So that's kind of a new thing for me there, and I'm trying to figure out how to progressive overload it
Yep.
with like a mixture, maybe one extra rep or maybe one a little weight. I mean, is there any recommended weight? Because I mean, it's new to me, so I want to slow roll it. You
Slow,
know, so,
slow, definitely slow roll it. Trap bar deadlift is the best way to learn how to deadlift. It's the safest one on your back. It's right over your
right,
center of gravity. I love it for the athletes or beginners or just people that aren't power lifters and don't have any need to bench with or to deadlift with a barbell. It's just so much more forgiving. The cool thing with deadlift is it's one of those lifts that you're gonna progress relatively fast at. It's our strongest lift. The glutes are the biggest single muscle on our body, and that's the primary mover in a deadlift. So it is one of those lifts that it is pretty easy when you first start deadlifting and you feel like you've got the form down and it feels good and you're getting sore in the glutes and the legs and you're not like it's okay to get a little sore in the back. That's normal as your back it'll make your back stronger, but you're not like bad sore in the back and you're like, okay, I'm doing everything right. It's pretty easy to put 5 to 10 pounds a week on the deadlift in the beginning. Like obviously you will reach a point where you won't be able to do that anymore, but in the beginning you are going to scale the weight on that faster. I would still use the same double progression system that we use where start at the bottom of a rep range, add a rep, add a rep, add a rep week to week, and then go up. And on that one, you could probably go up 20 pounds. You could probably put a 10 on each side or at least a 5 on each side. And so on a monthly basis, you could be adding 10 to 20 pounds to your deadlift very safely, very easily. Makes sense? Perfect. But yeah,
you demand.
take it slow because it is, yeah, just take it slow. Make sure you're feeling it in the right places and start light. You're still going to get a brutal, like full body workout out of it no matter what. But yeah, as you start to look like, okay, I got this, I feel good, and you progress it, yeah, I would do that one rep at a time and then it's an easy jump for 10 to 20 pounds on the deadlift.
Right on.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you guys have the best rest of your day, and I will see you guys all here again shortly.
Have a good night.
Yep. Later, guys.